The first one is my question, Andrea.
Okay.
Is Putin a murderer?
Oh, well, we are recording this. Okay, I take care of your question. Okay.
It's complicated. It was not a Hypercitizen. No, not at all.
Okay, I take note of your question. Okay.
Okay.
Then other questions.
My question is a bit provocative, so allow me to be out of line. Hearing about citizenship, citizens, I thought there is a connection, at least I made a connection between hyper-citizenship and the people of God. What was the connection I made? According to the Christian, at least, the one I know better, the people of God have all the same language. They find themselves from different countries. They try to go beyond the national state level. They try to purify their minds, their spirits, and to go deep in themselves. I can understand that the concept of hyper-citizenship is far from this thought. But Professor Andrea, can you find some similarity between these two worlds?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you again. Thank you all for the stimulations, the elicitations, the questions, and some little criticism I appreciate. I'll try to sometimes to answer to each single speaker as much as I can. Sometimes I will connect different topics emerged from different presentations, as the connections were quite clear for me. Yes, Alfredo, hypercitizenship is an attempt to provide a key for a new stage. Of course, we will see if it works, and I think on the research basis it should work, but of course science is only part of the game. There is also the lobbying, economical, political side of the story, not the social side of the story, not only the scientific side. We know very well that inventions and models through the ages could be successful or not, also according to the social, political, economical context in which they emerged. Absolutely, yes, we are living more and more an existence which is a network which is shaped as an evolutionary complex system. It is very important that when we talk about systems, we have to consider that system without complex, without evolutionary, doesn't mean that much. I could see many papers, too many books, in which the term system is adopted with no meaning, sometimes as thing, sometimes as method, sometimes as whatever. I couldn't find the word, so I used the system. So they use the system sometimes in a very inappropriate way. So when we talk about systems, we talk about complex evolutionary systems. That's very important to remember this. And also the terms of complexity, which means how a self-organized system is managed to select contingently and expand evolutionarily the exceeding variety of alternatives, is often adopted simply as a synonym of a complicated. It's complex, it's a mess. It's not like that, of course. So when we talk about a general vision, a general theory, we also have to clarify very neatly the meaning of the concepts we are using. Otherwise, it could be a mess in terms of misunderstandings. So we talk about hypercitizenship as a global governance policy model framed within a complex evolutionary system epistemology. So to be very brief. And I think you were right about focusing on the network side of an evolutionary system. Abraham was great as usual, and my book, in a certain way, also comes from my period in Amsterdam when Maria Teresa Brancaccia and I were doctoral students under Abraham's direction. Abraham de Swan, at the end of the 80s, wrote a book titled In Care of the State, very much focusing on the typical features of welfare state, welfare policies centered on the state. But a few years later, just to welcome my arrival in Amsterdam, he was the editor of another book titled Social Policy Beyond Borders. It was becoming clear already in the mid-90s that states were no longer the organizational unit of the world order. It doesn't mean states are wrong or right. It's not a matter of good or bad. It's a matter of systemic power of leverage and scaling in the management and expansion of complexity, which means evolution for the system. If the system doesn't have ways to expand, it doesn't reproduce itself, and so it will implode. So that's the problem, for example, of many ideas, many theories founded on the old idea that national states can be the operational unit, the most important unit of the current world order. It is no longer so, at least since the Enlightenment. Also, the 19th century was not featured by national states. It was featured by colonial empires. After the colonial empires began to fall, a new kind of empires took shape, two big empires. The American Empire, after the split of the Berlin Wall, and the so-called Soviet Empire. So where was national sovereignty? It's a myth. Okay, we had the president of the Republic in Italy in the 70s, in the 80s, but well, Washington decided. Maybe Poland had the president, but Moscow decided. So the illusion and the myth of sovereign national states is an illusion which is rooted maybe in the 17th century, in the times of the Peace of Westphalia. But just at the beginning of the Enlightenment, national sovereignty just became an illusion, a kind of zombie concept. It was already dead. People still began to believe in national sovereignty, but in practice, the world order was no longer modeled on national sovereignties. Okay, let's go next. So Abraham was great, also specifying COVIDs as a nice so to speak, a valuable way to understand the expansion of networking thinking. COVID is a kind of biological systemic network, also for the way it is diffused. So if you want to defeat a biological network, systemic network, you need a more abstract, more general and stronger, evolutionary stronger, technological, social, economical network. That is why it's a paradox. A lockdown could work on the very short run just to understand what kind of enemy we were dealing with. But on the middle and on the long run, it is not the solution. So I totally agree with Abraham's vision, and I think it is important to make sense of two important aspects. So in this way I will try to connect Abraham, Georgi, Michel, and Piero in a way. Georgi underlined once again the four pillars we know about the book, so I will not repeat them. And it is an expansion of citizenship on a higher scale, a higher authority whose concept was already clarified in the Schuman Declaration of May 9, 1950, when the European Community for Coal and Steel was founded. So it was clear that we were going towards a higher authority than the states, also in that project. Well, where is the link? Georgi spoke about hyper-optimism. In a certain way, he might be right, in a certain way, because if you are not some way optimistic, you don't even wake up from the bed in the morning in a certain way. So you will die because you implode. when we speak about depression, the meaning is the same both in economics and in psychology in a way. A depressed person is just flat down. So, of course, if optimistic means not to be depressed, I think optimism is a survival strategy. Otherwise, there is no survival and no evolution. On the other side, if optimistic means to be childish or stupid, in that case, the optimist would die. Would not, because it would become too unconscious, too irresponsible. But I understand what your argument. So in a certain way, yes, optimism is a pillar for evolution, because otherwise there is no evolution. But on the other side, it doesn't mean that it will work. For example, I'm going to link with Michelle also, and also Rudy made me a lot of questions. I have to focus also on Rudy's important inputs, and I'm grateful for that. Michelle asked us before what countries would improve these legal exceptions, like the creation of a new passport based on talent, based on creativity, or on investment. These inputs were also in the brief PDF titled Hypercitizen in a Nutshell. You can download freely from the page of the event, from the WCSA website. But still, Michelle's question is in a certain way wrong. The question is set in the wrong way, not the answer. Because if we ask which countries will improve this program, we are thinking exactly upside down in comparison to hypercitizenship. Abram said the COVID is a good test also to improve hypercitizenship, and it is easy to show that also in terms of the green pass the European Union wants to create for its citizens to travel worldwide. If the green pass takes shape as Mrs. von der Leyen is working, and it becomes the first European Union green pass, it is the embryon of a European Union passport independent from the national states. This is the shift. Traditionally, you are a European Union citizen because you are a citizen of the members of one of the member states. When Brexit took place, many British, sometimes citizens are smarter than their government, their local government, began to apply for French, for Belgian, for Dutch, for Irish citizenships. So they understood that to be British was a suicide, or to be only British, it is a suicide, because you are in an island. If you are not in London, nobody knows you. If you are from Wales or from, some other areas, I think people know in the word Wales only because there was the scenario for the movie series Doctor Who. For the rest, nobody knows about Wales. Just an example. So, to be British and to suicide is a synonym in this kind of word order. So in that case, the most important elite began to apply for French, German, Dutch, Belgian passports, trying to become dual citizens. So to be once again European Union members, because in this case you cannot be only part of how can I say of a local sphere. Otherwise, you would be lost in a kind of implosion process. That is why, on one side, we cannot trust too much national states. Ulrich Beck was very clear to talk about methodological nationalism. I think an important step in the election system of the European Union, for example, would be that we vote as Europeans. Now we are not voting as Europeans at the European Union elections. I cannot vote a candidate in Slovenia or in France or in Germany. I have to vote in the list of the Italian election college, which is stupid because it reproduces the illusion that we are 2 centuries back. So we are trying to develop the Union as if it were more than the sum of the states. So we complain about the fact that the European Union is not working for some reasons, and it could be improved. But on the other side, we use the problem as if it were the solution. So as the Union doesn't work, national states try to take back more power in their hands. But as the national states are one of the reasons why the Union doesn't work, we will see easily with the Green Pass for the vaccine or for AstraZeneca is the more the divergence between a local, which means national, decision-making process and supranational decision-making process, so the gap will become more and more evident. Because the paradox will be in that the states will try to put more and more power in their hands without resources, and resources, tangible and intangible capitals, will do their best to escape from the national state level. Because the national state level is not big enough to, how can I say, to expand the intangible and tangible value. At the same time, the national state level is too big to let when successful local experiments, like, for example, could be Hypercities, just to connect with Bologna and Sinan, to expand. Maybe today, about UK, most of us can say, who cares? The influence of UK is decreasing. At the same time, we know that London is very important. Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, a couple of years ago suggested to let London become an independent city-state in the Union, adopting the euro. And the UK without London, you know, we don't have to add much. Let's go and to quickly connect to Alfredo. I will not answer you if Putin is a murderer or not. I will answer you saying, in these days, as much as the national states are losing control of every process, as they are losing control of the pandemic management, because the more you localize, the more you cannot control the network. You cannot manage a global network locally, like a virus. On the same side, sometimes states are preferring to create the illusion we are getting back to a kind of a new Cold War scenario, because the Cold War scenario was and is oversimplified as a very basic. Good, if you are Russian, Americans are bad. If you are American, Russians are bad. If you are American, you think to yourself you are cool. And if you are Russian, you think to yourself as you are cool. That's very easy. So sometimes, especially in the speeches of very old politicians, consider that among Trump, Putin, and Biden, how can I say? They are important figures, no problem, but we cannot say they are emergent young politicians. They all belong to the Cold War scenario. So for them, the easiest thing to try to reproduce is the world when they were young. But nobody can take for serious now that we can model a Cold War scenario again in such a complex world. We have too much complexity, too much technology. We had no Google, we had no Facebook, we had no WhatsApp, no Zoom like here in the 60s or in the 70s or in the 80s. I'm old enough to have been one of the school children going out. Mommy, I go out to my schoolmate John at his place. This is John's mother telephone number in the apartment. So my mother called John's mother to check if I was getting there to do my homework. Okay, million years far away from the kind of experience we are sharing now with Zoom, from Dubai to the Netherlands, from Belgium to Hungary, from Argentina to Brazil, and maybe also Italy. So to try to replace the political categories of the Cold War now is a bit like to tell everybody, okay, I have found a way to skyrocket to Mars. It is named bicycle. If you think you can use a bicycle to go to the moon, well, you have, or to Mars, well, you have a problem. Okay, so from this point of view, the green pass of the Union could be the very first experiment of an hyper-citizen pass. And the step from pass to passport is not too far away. So you keep, of course, the national states, that's okay, that's perfect, giving their own passports and nationalities, no problem. We are not denying that. We are saying that evolution is something more, is expansion. Expansion or implosion, there is no other way. And national states could become more and more important administrative local units to implement decisions made at a higher authority level, for better and for worse. And that's why I prefer to use the term legal expansion, legislative expansion, more than the expression of legal exception, which can be misunderstood. I'm trying to go fast now, but I have to answer my friend Rudy's important questions, and also to answer my Pierre's important inputs. Let's start with Rudy. I'm grateful to him again. If I remember well all the questions, please, Rudy, help me if I do something wrong. Crisis, if you consider the etymology, crisis is transformation. You can have no evolution without transformation, and no transformation without evolution. So if a crisis is meant in the common sense word of, oh, we are in a mess, sometimes it's not necessary to have a crisis, but the crisis as a transformation or evolution is unavoidable to have a social, economical, political growth. Also because if you consider the Second World War a tragic period of history, nevertheless, for some people, it was a chance to make a lot of money, for example, and to expand the business of weapons. Also, the Cold War. So, in every age, when we talk about crises are opportunities and threats at the same time. Every crisis brings both of them, both opportunities and threats. And as it often happens, as you quoted Derrida, construction and deconstruction and reconstruction, sometimes where the opportunities are and where the threats are mirror much more the observation level of the observer, the skills, the competence, the vision, the strategy of the observer, than the reality in se. So from this point of view, yes, crises are sometimes inevitable. Are they predictable? Well, how can I say? The expert in foresight study here, it's you, Rudy, not me. So I will not teach you your own work, because you are much better than me in your work, of course. But what I can tell you very simply and quickly is when you are in an hospital or when you are in an office, you wish there are fire extinguishers. Fire extinguishers are not there to foresee when something will happen, but to have them ready if something happens, if a fire happens. And in Italy, we have a very tragic joke about COVID. As my friend Piero was talking about education, I don't know if it is in Italy or just here in the north, where I'm based at the moment, in Bologna. COVID was a strange opportunity to remind people that after going to the toilet, you have to wash your hands. So sometimes our hygienic standards, our sanitation standards became something prior, strategic now because of the COVID, but we forgot them sometimes. I'm not talking about us, I'm talking on the large scale, of course. So you can tell me I'm educated and I wash my hands every time. I'm not discussing this. Okay, but if you take a look around the planet, the hygienic sanitary conditions sometimes were scaring. And the question was, how was it possible a pandemic did not come out yet? Ebola or SARS-CoV-1, SARS, or sometimes the mad cow were also some little inputs about this kind of resetting, biological resetting. So your first question was where if crises are necessary to evolution. In brief, I could say yes, but it's a longer story. Can be a crisis be foreseen or use the foresight? Well, I think you should tell me because you are the expert. What I say that sometimes we need to improve some measures, not wondering when, but acting as if. So as if it could happen or it could be going to happen, just like in the Turing machine. The Turing machine was set to correct the machine in case it stopped. So if it stops, I know how to find the solution to let it start again. I don't try to foresee if it will stop, if it stops. Or even when it stops. Sometimes using Heidegger, quoting Heidegger, an age comes to complete its evolutionary set. In German, it's called Vollendung, fulfillment. National states are not good, are not bad. I have nothing against states, believe me. Okay? So I think states have been important in history and can be still important as administrative units. But they are in the top of their fulfillment, Vollendung auf Deutsch, in German. So a turn is required, what Heidegger called the Kehre, turn. This turn at the moment is a supranational shift, which is an unlimited opening to the possible, which in Heidegger's term is called Gegenwart. But Gegenwart, once again, includes opportunities and threats. Gegenwart is not beautiful. it's a good opportunities, great opportunities, but also great troubles. But at the same time, great troubles are part of the evolution. So from this point of view, the green path of the Union, if it is delivered by the European Union itself and not by the member states, will be a very important jump in evolution from the question which countries will do that to the other important question: how is the shift of the citizenship level is taking shape? So other questions of yours, my dear Rudy, because I'm trying to go on. Your questions were about are crises necessary?
And who can change the world?
You can change the world, but well, not me personally. Not me personally, of course. Well, I'm not so egocentric. I'm Italian, but not so egocentric. So when you are Italian, normally you start saying my relatives were Michelangelo, Raffaello, Leonardo da Vinci, all those guys. But believe me, I never met them. So change the word. Well, I go back to an example, which is also a way to answer Rudy and to talk with my friend Piero about the new humanism. I absolutely love Piero's vision, and I think if we don't educate citizens to a supranational trend, it will be more complicated, not complex. Because the more you are unable to manage complexity, the more your life becomes complicated. At the same time, I'm not so optimistic, in spite of Jorgi's word, about a new humanism. Because sometimes I make a very simple consideration. Consider the Great Flood. The Great Flood, 8,000 years ago, more or less. I was not there, but they told me. The Great Flood took place about 8,000 years ago, they told me. There are many religion traditions, not only the Bible, not only the Christian tradition, but also the Indian from India, and many Central American old religions and legends which talk about this great flood. This great flood depended very much on the melting of the ices at the poles of the planet. But guys, 80,000 years ago, we were not here in our current shape. I mean, we were on the planet, but our pollution power was not different from one of a cow. So what could be scary is that climate change is real, climate change conditions are real, and are totally independent from what we do. Sometimes we are very much anthropocentric, and we esteem ourselves too much, and we expect to be able to change the world also in terms of very deep, radical, natural connections, which is something that we could interfere sometimes with nature. But nature and culture, from this point of view, as Johann Hausbaum also wrote in a great book of the 80s, they some way lead parallel lives. So a new humanism is important, and I agree with Piero, if we talk about education to complexity, more open-minded citizenships, a more educated citizen in understanding the interconnection among all of us on the planet. But if a new humanism becomes the Renaissance idea that the man is the center of the universe, well, we could have a problem. And the climate changes. You can stop polluting, and the climate changes. No way out. So don't expect your local governments, political governments, to create specific actions to change something which probably could not be changed. 8,000 years ago, the Great Flood took place. We were polluting nothing. Nevertheless, the weather became hotter, and the ices of the poles began to melt. Exactly like now. We pollute, they melt. We don't pollute, they melt. So changing the world is about changing the social human world we live in. And then we can redesign our organizations. We can have maybe a better organized World Health Organization, which I think is the key of everything, also for better and for worse. I'm not saying the World Health Organization is doing great. I'm saying that this is the level from which we can fight a pandemic. But if the highest level doesn't work, the lower level will work even worse. So the first question was, crises are necessary or avoidable? Second, they were predictable or not, foreseeing or not. The third, change the world. Well, we count on young generations as far as we can, but I'm too busy to change the world today. And there was the fourth question of yours, Rudy, if you don't mind.
No, it's how, because we have revolution, we have referendum. And what is the role of the crowd? What is the role of the people, of the citizens, or the hyper citizens? What is their role in doing it? Because, you know, as Michel said as well, I was a bit shocked that yes, 2% of the people are super citizens. Yeah, but this is close to the Ubermensch. I don't think we should go that way.
No. My goal is not Übermensch, and
No, yes.
I don't like Friedrich Nietzsche. I don't even have a mustache as yet, so no worries. No, in my mind, hyper-citizens could be everybody.
Yeah,
Sinan was very clear. Sinan was very clear when he explained us that, for example, in his mind, he lives in an hyper-city which contains a part of Brussels, a part of Slovenia, and so on. So, in a certain way, my hyper-city includes some areas of Brussels, some areas of Naples, some areas of Bologna, my hometown, some areas of Curitiba in Brazil. Also, the co-authors of this book, I want to thank again my team, Emilia Ferrone, Sara Petroccia, and Natalia Brazil-Dib. Natalia and Sara come from my teaching service when I was in Naples, in a way. And Natalia comes out from my experience as a professor in Brazil at Pontificia University some years ago. In a certain way, I have a piece of my heart in Curitiba, a piece of my heart and my mind, of course, in Brussels, a part in Amsterdam. Also, under this one was my doctoral, supervisor, and Matheus Brancaccio was a colleague, a fellow colleague, a doctoral of mine. So, I mean, every person had the potentiality to expand as an hyper citizen. Maybe in a certain way, if you go to the spiritual side, maybe you can connect everything to everything. In another debate, someone told, as you speak about enlightenment, you are a member of Masonry. I'm not. Or you are a Templar. Well, I'm not, because they were all killed many centuries ago under the will of King Philip of France, in 1314. Certainly, the idea of a more cosmopolitan universalism can be part both of the people of God and of hyper citizens. But on the other side, you can be also an atheist and be an hyper citizen. You can be a Buddhist and be an hyper citizen. You can be what you wish in terms of religious beliefs. What is important is that your mind, with a very new age phrase, it's important your mind and your heart are open, but for the rest, you can be atheist, you can be Catholic, you can be Buddhist, you can be Hindu, you can be Muslim, Islamic, total opening. So I would not allow religion to become such a specific criteria, because otherwise it would be a kind of loop. Because otherwise you would say, okay, you are not exactly an hyper citizen, so you are kind of infidel. Well, okay. I more or less replied to all your inputs as far as I could. Of course, I did my best to be not too long, but still, I wish I was clear enough, and I'm very grateful to you all for your inputs, and I think there will be precious stimulations also for further writings about hyper-citizenship. Also in terms of divulgation, in terms of communication of this vision to entrepreneurs, to professionals, to young students, to everybody, politicians, of course, if they are interested, and policy makers, policy modelers. So I wish it could be, this seminar could be one more nice step forward. And I'm very grateful to you, because if this step forward became real, it became concrete, because it was because of your participation and your important ideas that you shared with me. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, just to end this meeting, again, our thanks to Andrea Pitasi, my teacher, and also my friend. So everyone, please take care of yourself, because coronavirus is a complex system. And as a complex system, we need complex doctors. And unfortunately, we don't have complex doctors. So please take care. Long life to everyone, and hope to see you very, very soon in another seminar like this one. And our congratulations again to Andrea. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Alfredo.
Thank you.